First of all, I would like to read out the main motive of this motion. Is that voting power is everyone's individual democratic right. The government doesn't want to segregate between the educated and uneducated people. But here is the main issue is that to giving more preferences to the educated persons and to the uneducated ones, a little preference means all the individuals can vote according to their choice. But in case of selection of in case of preferences, government is going to give a preference more to the educated ones. Giving out the statistics, according to 2011 census report, the literacy rate of India is 73%, and in today's date it is way more. So it is not a specialized bill; it is a generalized bill for maximum of the population. Coming back to my first point, is that informed decision making. Education equips individuals with critical thinking and skills and knowledge. It gives more power to educated peoples likely to make informed decisions. And these informed decisions are a support to the government for making rather more bills and rules and regulations. If an educated person gives an opinion regarding a matter through overlooking and overall thinking, then the decision is to be given more preferences than an uneducated, uninformed person. We all know an uneducated or uninformed, to be more specific, uninformed person is more helpful to the state or government or the people in case of a major decision when a state is to be run by a rule or act. So an informed person is to be given more preferences in case of an uninformed person. Here a major question arises: how the government can distinguish between the educated persons and the uneducated persons. Here a major question arises. Here the government takes the stakehold on the voter education programs, voter knowledges, and civic engagement initiatives. And expert panels and advisory boards are to be set up so that the knowledge of government's bills and their voting right power are to be well informed to every individual at a very basic level. This preference or giving more power to the individual based on the education level is not about the degree. It is about the informed, well-skilled, well-trained or well-known person. The person who is more known to themselves.
POI.
Yes.
Can you just elaborate on that? How exactly you determine who is more?
Exactly. And my argument is not something. I'm just giving the point. First of all, voter education programs that the government, that I just told, the government can make programs to educate individuals on the basis of which the individuals or the citizen of a country can distinguish and can between the good side and the bad side of a bill or an act, or in case of voting rights, which party or which person or which candidate, which individual in standing for the election is good or bad. They are just educating the individual, the parameters. It is up to the individuals who will take it, how they will apply. Moreover, the expert panels and advisory boards, it should be set up for in such case scenarios the person who are well known, means the intellectual people in our surroundings, in our nation, in our country or state, in our society actually. Those are to be taken as experts. POI. Yes, I would like.
Who will be the members of the advisory board?
In case of when a government makes a bill, the government selects an advisory board. In that case scenario, such persons who are well aware about it, such as in many cases we can see that the government makes an advisory board by taking members from the opposition side, also from the government side. They are the actual well equipped and well known person, means the intellectuals actually, who are intellectual people to our society, who gives more contribution to our society, like the Bharat Ratna or the people who are well awarded by our government, well recognized person by our government, who contributes to the society very well. They can be taken up as advisory board members or expert panels. The government already initiates to take such expert panel and advisory board in case of other laws and rules and regulations. programs. Such educational or qualification programs are based on 1 minute. Such education or qualification programs are based on basically on the overall educational development on the basis of the education margin is not the degree one. Here it indicates about the voting rights of an individual, the knowledge on which a person can, a illiterate person can also be well informed about the activities, about the things that is to be well presented in the parliament. Moreover, when such bills are to be passed, when an educated person takes the liability responsibility, the accountability of the government also reduces, because if then the mass opinions merit also increases. The mass opinions merit also increases because the individuals, those are giving this mass opinion are well experts, having knowledge about it, well informed about it. 6 minutes.
7 minutes. Your time is up, but please continue. I will mark you accordingly. Please wrap up in 30 seconds.
Moreover, there should be well-rounded perspective about the total information about this. And lastly, I would like to conclude my statement by one thing: the government is basically promoting education in this manner. If individual is a educated citizen, later on the individual can be a educated minister or an individual educated parliamentary member in the latter. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Leader
One
of
second. Guys, please be aware of the guidelines. The first tap means 1 minute is over, then you can ask POIs. Second tap means POI ka time is restricted. Second, the last double tap means your time is over. You have to wrap it up in 20 seconds.
Only 2 taps were given.
2 taps at the end when your entire speech was
But
over.
there should be a first tap after 1 minute.
I believe it was a bit too soft. Sum it up.
Because they asked
This is the first
POI
one,
after your
that's why-
first minute ended.
Okay.
Okay.
We are sorry that you could not hear it. We will make sure that it's
Okay.
louder in future. Thank
Leader
you,
of
Mr. Prime
Opposition.
Minister. Leader of Opposition, the stage is all yours. Also, you don't have to stand at the podium. If you wish to walk around, you may.
Yeah.
Alright. Yes. So that push the podium a bit back and like make yourself a bit more space. That's all right for you. Thank you. Tell us when you want to start and we shall start the clock accordingly.
Greetings to the panel. My name is Satvik Das and I will be the leader of operation for today's debate, and I will be starting my speeches 3, 2 and 1. Now before we begin this debate today, first of all there is a dire need to define the terminology of this debate and to determine the stakeholders, the people who will be directly affected by the debate that we are having today. As regards the term, I think there is one terminology that is to be defined today, that is the term is education. What exactly do you mean by that? Now, the Prime Minister gave a very elaborate statement, but I did not still find what exactly he meant by education, who exactly he would deem to be educated enough, or what level of education exactly is needed for which power of voting exactly. So we could not find that definition. And I would like to say that we do not have to provide an alternative definition because we are defending the status quo. The status quo, as it exists right now, is that every person, being this a democratic republic, every person has the right to vote regardless of education. The government is the one who is demanding a very, very radical change in the status quo, one that literally amounts to taking away the rights of people and granting it to people who they deem as more worthy. This is a very, very radical and drastic change. So it is their burden to define what exactly they mean by education and who they would deem to be educated enough. Now, I would like to define the stakeholders of today's debate before I proceed further with my constructives. I would define the stakeholders, the primary stakeholders, the ones who will be affected the most, are the people who will be deemed to be at least not educated enough to vote or to not have as much voting power as the people who are educated enough. They are the primary stakeholders of this debate. The secondary stakeholders are the people who are educated enough or who are educated to have more voting power than the people who are not educated enough. That's a lot of education in one sentence, I'm sorry. But before that, I would like to present 2 questions to the government side. Is that first
So
of all,
you have a POI?
I have a PO.
So you have a POI, you may reject or take it.
a little bit later.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to present 2 questions to the government side. If they want to institute this type of drastic and radical change, I want to know from them how much education is exactly necessary to have a higher voting power and one that is to have a normal voting power or no voting power at all. And who decides exactly? Who chooses how much education is necessary? The answer that was provided by the Prime Minister is that a panel of Bharat Ratna laureates and such intellectuals will decide. That would seem to me to be a very, very elitist argument, and a very argument that is really bordering on the most extreme kind of meritocracy and elitism possible. So how exactly do you think that is it not amounting to changing the democratic republic nature of a country and transforming it into something that is more communistic or totalitarian in nature, where someone who is an intellectual, whatever that might mean, will decide the interests and the voting and who is worthy to vote and who is not worthy to vote for each and every person? Because this, you are promoting a sort of vicious cycle with it. Because in many countries, only wealthy people have the facilities to provide further education for their own progeny, not the poor people, not the uneducated people. So you are creating a much bigger social divide. I also disagree with the Prime Minister when he said that educated people are more informed, or they are well informed, or that they have that they will contribute more to the society. I disagree with that. I do not believe that educated people, I think educated people also have a lot of uninformed notions. Educated people are also susceptible to a lot of notions that are incorrect or inaccurate or that are subject to their own personal biases, which are untrue. Education does not necessarily mean that they have a better understanding or better knowledge or that their opinions carry better credibility. Conversely, poor people know their own interests. Poor people are capable of knowing their own interests. They want to have jobs, they want to live in peace, they want to have better schools and decent private and public services. They do not need a degree to know their own interests. PY.
Here you are mentioning poor people. Can you please elaborate the poor? They are the poor people. Who are the poor people? Because we are talking about the educated people. So distinction between these educated people and poor.
So you can sit and ask POIs. You don't have to stand up.
Okay.
Regarding the poor people, what I mean to say is that there is a very, very high correlation between being poor and being uneducated. Education is almost a sort of a privilege that is afforded to the really, really privileged and the really upper strata of the society. It is very, very hard that people who are born in unfortunate circumstances can go on later on to get education. It is hard for them to achieve. So there is a very high correlation between being poor and being uneducated, and this policy of yours will actually further this social divide even more. Now, and when you say that people might be well informed or this or that, I want to ask you, does self-education count, and how exactly would you differentiate between different types of education? Is a degree or is some citation from Delhi University as valuable as a degree from a local college? How exactly is different education level to be marked? Now, and you are proposing to take away the rights of uneducated people by offering the educated people more voting power. But in your new society, would uneducated people still not have to pay taxes? They would still have to pay the same requisite amount of taxes as uneducated people. They would still be subject to the same laws as the educated people. So you are proposing to take away one of their essential rights, fundamental rights, but they would have to still carry out the same duties and be subject to the same laws and pay the same taxes without representation of their own person they want to see in their legislative assembly. So am I as educated as, and how would you determine who is educated and who is not educated enough? Am I as educated as a carpenter who plans my house right down to the nail and wood, and how much would be required to set up a mansion? Is he not educated in his own way, or what? Would I have to be educated in more technical fields? Now, the government side assumes that the uneducated people have a sort of a selfish streak in their nature, that they tend to vote for their own interests, that it might lead to an increase in populism. You might not like populism, but populism is becoming very, very popular. And that may be unfortunate for you, but that is the will of the people. So if uneducated people vote in their own selfish interests, how can you assume that educated people would not vote in their own selfish interests? What basis do you have to claim that educated people will work in the national interest, but not interests when they find? What gives educated people this sort of moral superiority that they will consciously work for themselves, but for the greater good of everyone? So, and if I am uninformed on something, you said that I am uninformed to vote on specific issues. I would argue that I am also uninformed on the exact location of a territory, or let's say Kashmir. I do not know the terrain, I do not know the exact weather, I do not know how much troops would be required. Does that mean I do not have an opinion if there is a war going on the war itself? Do I have to know the lethal dosage of each and every single drug to have an opinion on drugs? Do I need to be a fantastic mathematician with a degree in integral calculus to have an opinion on capitalism or communism or economics? So why are intellectual people of the society better suited to decide the interests of each and every single person as opposed to the person themselves? giving the same voting power to each and every person keeps everybody's interests in play. And that is why we oppose this motion and we want the status quo, which is a fair one, to continue. And more will be elaborated by my TL. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leader of Opposition. Deputy Prime Minister, the floor is yours. Tell us when you want to start and we'll start your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shayan Amin, and I'm from RCSLC, W6 Law College, affiliated by Calcutta University. Today's topic is the educated person, the people of India, should be given more preference to vote and not like biasly describing that the educated peoples are just giving the vote. Actually, if we think, as our Prime Minister said, the votes are being given by both uneducated and the educated people. We are not taking the right to vote. We are not disrupting the universal adult franchisee, but at the same time, we are giving more preference to the educated people as they have their own human intellect better than the uneducated people. Similarly, coming back to the point, if I give a just normal example by the facts, Pakistan is a least educated population, which already proved that uneducated people choose a worse leader than educated people. One of their prime ministers are right now in jail just because they are holding 150 cases on them because they chose a wrong leader. Similarly, if a particular country which has educated people and which is actually wanting or willing to educate the further generations, they can start a motion by itself. Let's come to the points. Promoting education can in a further level, like international level. Let's take up if an educated person goes to a particular, he can give up his vote values, which is something to the another level, something which the uneducated people haven't even heard about. You described the minimum education level also. Let me tell you, we said the minimum education level should be well informed, not a degree or a certificate or something with class. Well informed people who have that education level, who have that particular information, so that they can choose a. Let's take up another point which my Prime Minister said, that educated people can reduce the influence of misrepresentation. Let's take a normal example. If a person goes to promote his particular party to a rural area and say that people, I will give you this, I will give you that, ifs and buts, and the uneducated people who don't come up with an explanation that he might give us something, he might give, they can make particular speech, particular disruptions which are being created by the party. But at the same time, if a person is educated, he knows the budget of that particular state, budget of that particular country, they won't be disrupted by the false misinformations which are given by the party. Yeah, sure.
Can you tell us how do you practically aim to implement your policy? Because do you not think that the uneducated people, when they get to know that you are providing more preference to a certain class of people, they would be rioting or protesting at this? How do you practically aim to enforce this?
I'll inform this afterwards.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So, educated people, sorry. Educated people are something which should be promoted, not to be demoted. Education is something which should be given to everyone, every single. We are not saying that uneducated people should be discriminated and should be removed from the society. They are a part of the society. But similarly, we are educating people, we are giving them preference, we are promoting their powers, so that the uneducated people also step up to the like particular level, and they educate themselves to get that particular preference which the educated ones are also getting. Even if I see, like, if the government has the power to give preference to the educated ones, tomorrow when the educated one will go to that particular session, he might make a change. One of the most problematic thing which India has is job opportunities. Educated people are there, but job opportunities are definitely not there. If an educated person is leader of a party, he might get to that point that when I was there, I was a person who was not informed, who was not able to get particular job opportunities. He might use himself as an example, and he might make a change. But if an uneducated person is promoted to a leader of a party, he might go for the betterment of the society. He might. But at the same time, he won't go for the betterment of the younger generations. The younger generations over here is the point of debate. We are promoting the education, not a particular hierarchy. The people, the people of the party wants that education should be promoted, not a particular discriminatory system to be promoted. At the same time, if an uneducated person is giving a vote, he might give it to the person with a well-known perspective or well-known identity. But at the same time, if an uneducated person is giving a vote, he might think that the newer ones can make a change. Concluding to my speech, educated people should be given the right to promote, should be given more preference to be getting 6 minutes. 1 minute. The educated people should be given the right to be promoted, but at the same time, the votes are also for the uneducated ones. They should have the knowledge, they should have that particular perspective, but at the same time, they should go for education, because education is the key to success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Leader of Opposition. The floor is all yours.
Greetings, panel. I am Shravani, and I will be the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here, I would like to ask the government the very basic question. Did you not read the motion of the debate? Because the motion said that more voting power should be given to those people with more education. But here, all I have heard from the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister is about preference. Preference is very different from what voting power is. And when you came over here, you never mentioned anything about preference. Or did you? Okay. Coming back, there were words that were substitutely used by the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, that is education and information. Well, I think you are just substituting education with well-informed. And even when you say well-informed, what do you mean by well-informed? You never define what do you mean by informed. If I am a farmer in some remote village, why do I need to know about what is happening in Gaza or Israel? What kind of information? Do I need to have information in the field of computer science, also international politics, national politics, everything to know that what is happening in my own locality? I know that today I am a villager here, I am not getting water. And in my district, if I am not getting those things, then I will vote for the MP accordingly. And that is my concern. And I am well informed about my problems. I believe every individual is well informed about their own problems. But then, what do you mean by well informed? We never came to know about that. And then, here, as my LO questioned you, Deputy Prime Minister, that after you do this, after you give preference, according to you, to those people, then won't there be rights? You never answered his question. There will be rights. And how are you planning on controlling those rights? Because obviously you are giving preference to one class and not the other. And that might ultimately lead to, at a certain point, it will be like a domino effect, and that will lead to classism, which will again be an elite kind of movement that starts on, and that will lead to totalitarianism. And how are you trying to defend that when it comes to it? Also, when you said about education, there are various ways to provide education. You can make it more affordable, more accessible. But how, taking away their voting power, their rights, are you making this education accessible? And you said that only an educated person can make any difference. Panel, I would like to ask you, currently, who is the Prime Minister of India? It's Mr. Narendra Modi. I don't think he is educated according to your standards that you mentioned. Is he not bringing any changes? I think he is. Yeah.
The thing you stated that he is not educated means I didn't get a question that did he make a he is educated according to us or he educated in general question mark.
According to you, in general, because according to us, when we say education, it can be in various fields. Like when I say education, it can be self-educated, it can be a person who has passed 10th or 12th, or someone who is a college dropout but still is there on the internet. He has learned from their sources, because we live in the 21st century. We can access education through any resource. So, according to you, is he not educated enough? Because he seems to bring some changes. And how can you say that a person who is well informed, because you never defined what is informed, that is the only reason I'm bringing up this, that person does a conscious voting. If you gave me more clarity about what you mean by information, then I could have known. How can a person who is well informed make more conscious decision as compared to the other person? And then, who will decide this? Who is well informed, who is not well informed? How much education is required, or how much information is required, what domains? And also, if a person has the same degree as the other person, who is more informed than the other person? If I have a law degree and my colleague has a law degree, who do you think is more informed? Do you go individually and you ask us about current affairs, you quiz us, and then you know who is well informed? You don't, right? And when I asked you about the advisory board, you gave a very nice answer, but I don't think it was practical. Because when you said advisory board and then you said Nobel laureates from various fields will come together. Panel, I would like to ask you, if Nobel laureates from various fields are going to come together, every Nobel laureate has his own field of specialization. All of these people coming together to make decision about a topic or subject which none of them might be informed about or specialized. And even if one is, how many advisory board is the government going to set up? And then, according to them, you are going to allow people to vote in their preference list. That will just lead to another riot causing out there. Those people, right? Hundreds of board is not possible, and that's just delaying the entire election process when it comes to it. And with that, I would like to conclude my speech. Thank you.
You still have about a minute left, so thank you, Rialu. Government whip, please take the floor. Just a minute. Anisha, thank you.
Good evening, guys. My name is Arnab Chaudhary, and I'm from Ravindra Section Law College under Calcutta University. So, now regarding to the topic, as all of them has given their good points about the topic. So now I want to present some points that are said by my Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister. So, points for the idea of giving more voting power to individuals based on their education level means, here education means the more information. They already ask lots of things about information. Information and education about this topic is basically a large concept. In every election, there are voter and civic education. These are necessary to ensure that all constituents means the men and women alike their rights, their political system, and many more things going regarding to the voting scenario should need to be known. So now I'll describe what is civic education. It's a broader concept. It is aimed at conveying knowledge of a country's political system, and in context, the civic education information on the system of government, the nature and the power of the officers to be filed in an election. Now, I'll speak about the voters' education. Voters' education is basically to describe the dissemination of information materials and programs designed to inform voters about the specific and mechanics of the voting process for a particular election. So, basically, the education or information which are spoken a lot of times means the basic information about the voting rights. What are your rights? What should we do? What's the process of voting? That's all. Here, no large base of education. That means you don't need a degree to need to know these informations or collect the informations. Now, information means knowledge. You are talking about information basically. What are the information? What are the information? So information means knowledge about the bill and or the act which is to be passed. Everyone should know about their rights and also this all stuffs for a better government or a better country, betterment of the country. So now, you have also said that the rights, we didn't say that the rights shouldn't be given to the uneducated people, and you are comparing uneducated people with the poor people. So we haven't said that the poor people are uneducated. So if you talk about the poor people, the government is still running many campaigns in rural areas for the knowledge of the poor peoples, and also they are giving them many scholarship chances in various colleges, universities, or anywhere else. So, and we also know that the poor or the mediocre people with this chances can do well and can know well about any thing related to the government or what is going on in the country. So, like now, another point I want to talk about is the advisory board and the expert panel. The role of expert panel and the advisory board is a very complicated one. The government should choose specific people who can do their jobs or perform their jobs very much well. We need them, not in a number of 100, 200, but a minimum amount that will help in the betterment of the country. So that's why that's the work or the job of the expert panel and or the advisory board. Now, we are talking about the farmers. That the farmers are concerned about their system. If any political party comes and says that, okay, I'll solve your water problem, but many of them knows that this political party is not up to the mark or weren't up to the mark in his or her previous statement. So they will directly vote for them. So it's of no use. They can say anything, but the main thing is to what can they perform. So now you have said that about the education of Mr. Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So I'll say that Narendra Modi has a degree and he is a graduated person. So it's of no use of taking that point over here and talking about the education regarding to voting are the basic voting rights and the election process and many more things. And yes, so with this I want to conclude my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, government whip, opposition whip, please.
Greetings, panel. Good evening, everyone. I am Roshan Kumar Bhela. I am the opposition whip. So there has been a lot that had happened in the debate. Let us draw a clear picture what has happened till now. So at first the government PM came up and defined some of the terms like education, voting power, but they never gave a exact definition. Like they gave exact definition where there is a bar about what kind of education you are talking about. Is there a degree education, education in the school? There is no clear bar. What education you are talking about? You talked about giving preferences. What kind of preference? Like, are the voters who are educated going to get more power in voting? You never mentioned what do you mean the preference? Critical thinking. You told about educated people have more critical thinking. How? How will you justify that? For example, if a millionaire, he has been a millionaire through entrepreneurship. So and most of the millionaires that we see in today's world are dropouts. So are you saying that those millionaires are not educated enough? They do not have critical thinking? Next you told about voters' knowledge, civic committee, and you did not elaborate on that, which your DPM did, but you are just beating around the bush like some of the Bharat Ratna holders or something. And another point you told about was that government should give education about how to elect or more information. So I would like to question a point, like if the government gives education, wouldn't that be a biased education towards the government? Is the government funding the education? Wouldn't that government want to become the come in power in the next term? So will that government not give education which favors that government? Moving on, the leader of opposition came and asked questions about how much education and who will decide. And he raised a point that more education does not mean conscious voting. Conscious voting, by conscious voting, I mean that when a person is deciding on whom to vote, he is deciding on the common sense, he is deciding on his wisdom. And more education does not mean more wisdom. The leader of opposition also told about the same laws and taxes that are being imposed. If the people are the same, some of the people are not willing to vote, or some are given more preference and some are given less preference, but they're accounted the same laws. How is it justified? The wealthy have another point that the leader of opposition thought about was the wealthy have facilities to provide, but not the poor. I would like to tell that if the wealthy had that opportunity, they would have provided. But since they did not have, that doesn't mean that we would let poor suffer and not given the right to vote or given less preference. The DPM came and told about how and what level of education given more preference. For example, you gave the example of Pakistan. In Pakistan, I would like to say that demography is different. The people of Pakistan are different from the people that are set in this world, thus that is set in this context of the debate. I would like to say that correlation does not mean causation. How will it determine? How would it determine? Yeah, you also told about a point of well-informed. How would it determine which person is a well-informed person? The TLO came up and told about poor people. Tell us more about their demands. Poor people. How many number of millionaires do we have in the world? There are few, but the number of people, the poor people are more. So poor people have more clear clarity of what are the demands, what are the laws that should be formulated for the betterment of society. Coming to the whip came up and played the role of the Deputy Prime Minister. He defined the term education and more information. He defined about civic education, and he also defined about information and advisory committee and board and panel, whatever you said, which should be done. I would have appreciated if the DPM had done that. Wealthy people have more. We also question about poor people and uneducated people. How we are linking that? Yes, we are, because wealthy people have more resources, more facilities to give. you do not give a clear distinction about how much education, what is the bar for education. So, if we compare the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, in your best case scenario, every educated individual is given preference in voting and chooses a government that is intelligent, or maybe an intellectual person, or maybe the intellectual voters are voting the right person or may not be the right person. That depends on, that is subjective. But it favors only the educated, only one certain community, which leads to authoritarian government. But even if in our worst case scenario, uneducated people vote, which are the major stakeholders of the debate. As the major stakeholders of the debate, the major stakeholders are satisfied in our worst case scenario. Even if in our worst case scenario, as uneducated people are given the right to vote and opposition, and elect a government which is amongst the people. That means it represents more of the people. With that, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we shall be having the opposition reply. Who's replying? Can you please come in name?
Position?
I was there. I have 4 minutes.
Yes, you do.
Before I start, I would just like to take up some time just expressing what I expected from the government side in this debate, and their speeches, what they expected from us. Given that we were the ones who were defending the status quo as it exists now, and they were the ones who are proposing a radical change in the status quo, I expected some kind of model from them on what exactly, how they intend to make this change work, what exactly it would entail, what changes it would bring, how it would practically work, and to provide some specifics on how exactly they are going to implement this. But they did not provide any kind of specific model, which made it hard for us to engage with their idea or their vision for the future. I'm sure it's a good one, but I could not find any clarity in it. For example, they substituted, first of all, there was a lot of confusion on the government side about the motion itself. The motion clearly stated that this house supports providing more voting power to people based on their level of education. They substituted the word educated with well-informed, but did not define what exactly well-informed means. They simply substituted words with each other, giving us no clear idea on how would that provide any clarity, or what exactly is the educated guy, what is a well-informed person. So I did not have any clarity on that to make any points. Because there was no clear, and then one of their arguments was that we would not take away someone's voting rights, we would provide preference to people. But what kind of preference? Would they have one more vote than other people? Would they have 2 more votes than other people? Can they go to vote for 3 days instead of 1 day? They did not clarify what kind of preference, to whom this preference would be given, how would it work practically? Will the people not feel resentment towards the educated class and come to resent education if this kind of discrimination happens, instead of appreciating the value of education? There was no clear model, and there was no clear communication from the government side on what is the dying urgency. What is so urgent that such a drastic change is required in the society today? Why is this country so, what makes our country so far gone that we need such a radical change to be implemented? We agree with them that education should be promoted, should be made desirable, but we can do it by making it more affordable. We can do it by making it more accessible, not by discriminating among certain sections of the population based on their level of education. The whip was the only one who was quite clear about the motion. He mentioned something about civic education. He defined what civic education means, but it came from the whip. I would have appreciated if it came from the previous 2 speakers, because we would have a chance to respond to that. Having pointed out where they lagged, I would just like to say that our status quo is the one that should be maintained, because as we proved to you, panel, our status quo is one that fulfills the need of every major stakeholder. Nobody's rights are taken away, not even the ones who are educated. They have their rights. The people who are not educated or who are not have the opportunity to be educated, their voting rights should not be taken away. The stakeholders, their needs will be fulfilled. No harm would be caused to them. Our worldview has the exclusive benefit of being one in which the democratic republic will be maintained. The democratic republican principles of a state shall be maintained. Whereas their worldview promotes an exclusive harm in which classism and elitism shall prosper forward, and a select few group shall have the sole authority on deciding who is the one who is worthy enough to participate in a democratic functioning of a state. And with that, I would like to.
Thank you, Mr. P. Hello. Okay. Normally a match would not interfere, but I'm just feeling like telling you this. Please only reply to what they are saying, alright? Do not add any new points in your rebuttal. Only rebut what they have said in their reply speech. Yes.
Greetings. So, as the opposition stated, few points that I would like to highlight. They are mixing poor people with educated people. With educated people, uneducated people. Uneducated people to millionaires. Here the question is, as the opposition said that the topic is today, I would read it out again. This the house support the idea of giving more voting right to individuals based on their level of more voting rights. That means the right already exists to every individual. It's a better position only to the individual those are educated. And you are saying that education is information on a first basis, and you are dragging the point of degree. Educated people on the basis of degree. You have highlighted Narendra Modi. He is a graduate, and on other basis he is well informed about our nation. That's how he's running our country, right? If he is not well informed, how can he run a country? Also, he is a graduated person. To be on the side that you said. Only educated person on the basis of degree. You are casting a segment of people on the basis of degree, on the basis of the qualification that he acquires. You have highlighted the PhD and other laureate degrees, and I would like to say you have told no the laureates that Nobel laureates and Bharat Ratna, etc. There are a lot of people who are uneducated there. Means the degree education that you have said. There are many uneducated people that the degree education, less people, but they are well informed, they are well contributing, well recognized by our government, they keep well contribution in our country. Moreover, the state, you are creating a status symbol on the basis of their financial condition, rich and poor. If the poor people are educated, they are also getting that preferences. Moreover, it is not an exceptional or specialized bill. The current literacy rate of India on the basis of degree that you have highlighted. If I take only on that point, in 2011 the literacy rate, I also repeated that before, the literacy rate of India is 73. Currently, it is much more than that. So if it is a specialized law, then how can the majority of the people be getting the opportunity? And you are telling about the preferences. As the governor whip has replied that the preferences is basically on the merits of the bill or the resolution that is to be taken up. Moreover, you have told about the models, that we didn't put up any model. Perhaps you have missed some of my points of the argument that I have highlighted about the voter education programs, civic engagement initiatives, expert panel, advisory boards, voluntary. You have perhaps I am guessing that you have somehow missed my points. And if you are saying a practical structure of model, then I would suggest that, my dear opposition, first a resolution is being passed, then a model is set up. A government doesn't place an experiment first, then on the basis of the result of an experiment, the bill is being passed. It is not a lab experiment. It's a practical scenario in the parliament, and it's a running of a country. And you are taking up millionaires. I don't know from where you are taking up millionaires. There are a bunch of millionaires who are college dropouts. Again you are bringing up the degree education, but the millionaires are well informed. That's how they are running so much businesses, so much vast businesses.
You may wrap up in 1 minute, please.
30 seconds.
Make it 30 seconds. Apologies.
I would like to conclude my statement with just one statement by Nelson Mandela. Education is the most powerful weapon which can use to change the world. Instead of promoting nukes and other armors, we need to promote education, and this is also a way of our government to promote education. So I would like to support on the idea of giving more voting right to individuals based on their level of education. Thank you.
Thank you.